It is a global IR rather than non-Western, because non-Western is a negative kind of connotation there. And each of us will cover different non-Western thinkers, what they have said about this particular field, international relation and also sustainable development. I'll be talking briefly about what Buddha and Buddhist thoughts and my creative interpretation, how that is relevant to contemporary global issue and the international relation. Then it is followed by Bishnu Pathak, Professor Bishnu Pathak, and each of them will just introduce just before they begin their presentation. Professor Pathak will talk about the thinkers from Chinese wisdom tradition, Confucius, Tao, and other that is relevant for, again, IR and also sustainable development. And then the Stig Jarle Hansen will talk about a little bit from the Islamic perspective, Islamic scholar, what they have given their insights, because global IR, is it a theory or it is still an emerging theory, or what it is, we'll also discuss in that context. And then former His Excellency Ambassador Sambhuram Singhara will talk about what was the relevance of Gandhian way of thinking, which is relevant for international relation. And Professor Bidyanath Koirala will talk about a little bit from the global educational perspective and what is relevance for us today in this rapidly changing world with very many disorienting dilemma. And then respected Colonel Pradeep Gautam and probably Megha Bista will join. They will give their insights around what Kautilya or Chanakya or Vishnugupta had a relevance and what are their, non-Western, you may call it IR theory, and also their insights, their thoughts on this international relation and sustainable development. Well, having said that, how to make this international relation field inclusive and universal, because historically, when it emerged, this international relation field, it was developed mostly by the UK and also US scholar, and very many people feel that their worldview, their kind of theory which is relevant is not really included, because there is a Western hegemony, primarily because the way to acquire theory inside the contemplative way, we have a different kind of ontology and epistemology to do that. And there is also another problem with the language issue, and there was a language hegemony also. So how to make this non-Western philosophy, which finds its context, purpose, and relationship to IR and sustainable development, that we are going to talk about it. Also, even I would like to hear from different scholars who have been looking at these things, that is global IR, instead of calling non-Western, but I will say global now IR, is it an emerging theory, or is already well-established theory, or what it is really? In Chinese wisdom tradition, the wisdom from Confucius, wisdom from Tao, and also from Indian subcontinent, the wisdom from Buddha, wisdom from Chanakya, and many others, they are there. But how to decode those things, though that they will take the form of well-established theory and finds its legitimacy. This Advait kind of theory from India, also from different wisdom traditions. So first, I'll begin my presentation and I'll give my insight and my creativity from Buddhist wisdom tradition. For that, let me give you a wrap up for people who do not know what IR is. The IR for me is the
Hello.
way in which two or more nations,
कल्पना यसो भयो मैले हेर्दै थिएँ हैन
also international organization like UN, multinational organization, they interact with each other with regard to, especially in the context of political, economic, and cultural relationship, and also global environmental change is also an issue of international today, because that is, world is changing very rapidly, and this global environmental change has a multiple implications. So I also added the environmental aspects, which is also the issue of the shade of suffering is also an issue of international relation. And when we talk about the sustainable development, as you all know, that it is a very contested kind of concept, because it depends upon who defines it. But of course, sustainable development is, all the societal aspect, economic aspect, and environmental aspect. I mean, that we talk about that. So in the literature, of course, this is one version of the concept of sustainable development, where development that meets the need of present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own need. So with this background, I trust that panelists will also relate their insights. But there are, as I have already said, re-emerging, not only emerging, but re-emerging. They were there before, this non-Western contribution in IR, but because they didn't have agency power at that time to make it global, and they were in a sideline in the 50s and 60s, they started raising their voice, that Chinese were saying we have our own IR, and Indian were saying they are our own IR, and also other part of the world. But this can be theory, thought, conception, or even cosmovision, focusing on the insights, idea, belief from the classical and contemporary period. I will cover from Buddha, and I'm very proud that Buddha was born in Nepal and got enlightened, but he got enlightenment in the Buddha Gaya, and then I will not go the historical aspects of Buddha, but mostly my idea comes from these books, which is a Buddhist approach to international relation, and his idea on radical interdependence. And then there are re-emerging other theory and very young and dynamic colleagues, scholars from India, including Deepshikha Sai and Medha Bista. They are writing on the Kautilya, the Kautilya and non-Western IR theory. And they are also publishing quite a number of papers around Kautilya and as a re-emerging theories. The theories around the mandala, the center and periphery kind of relationships, how the quality of the state organization also affects the international relations, and many more things, kind of Saptanga theory, and also mandala theory, and so on. But for me, primarily becoming an environmental scientist, a professor of international and development studies, I have my own lenses. So this is my lens based on my understanding of different wisdom traditions and different thinker, that I'm focusing on the shared suffering, and also from the Earth system perspective a little bit, because the world, because of the anthropogenic influences, human being become a single forces who has altered the course of, going to alter and altering the course of civilization because of their heavy imprint on the anthropogenic influence on the Earth. So therefore, are there any kind of Eastern wisdom traditions which are relevant today, that the East and West can join the hand in order to be a part of solution? We talk in international about different kind of conflicts, war, and many things. And this world is a wounded world. There are major active war going on. I don't have to tell when there are scholars like Stig Jarle Hansen are here, which are listening to us. And they have their own justification. They have their own kind of, theorizing and all kind of theory why these wars are happening. But if you go the Buddhist perspective, deeper inside you, the major cause of all these things is something called hot bath. this called mulados, the kind of greed, the kind of delusion, the kind of all those kind of things, which is manifested in a collective, in a larger scale today. Look at what is happening between the brothers in Russia and Ukraine today. Every day there are new kind of very gloomy pictures are appearing around the world, and people are killing each other. But the Buddha Dharma says that, the Buddhist idea says that you cannot mitigate one enmity by cultivating another enmity. That is the Buddhist theory. Like they say that, nahi bairena bairani sambandito kudachanam abairena ta sambanti esa dhammo sanantano. Therefore, are there any scope where we can find this wisdom can permeate? There are other kind of dilemma in this world, like recently we had a pandemic, and that has taken 6.5 million people already. There's another disorienting dilemma. And the Buddha says that life contains suffering, but we can bounce back, that you can see today. There are a lot of other environmental issues around the world. Every year, drought, flood, this extreme event, this suffering, which creates suffering, we are coming every one, this kind of extreme event in 24 years, they will be coming every year. And you can see the recent flood in Pakistan. My heart and mind is there in the Pakistan, which is really, and this flood is not having this independent, isolated existence. These also arise because of some kind of dependent origination, and you can see. And our part of the Himalayan region that you can see very fragile ecology. And then water issue. So Buddhist idea of radical interdependence of reality in the earth system context also we have been teaching it, but a kind of technical or kind of just using something called third person inquiry approach. Of course, every biosphere is related to atmosphere, hydrosphere, lithosphere, but can you really feel that connection? When you are sitting there and breathing in and breathing out, just take a moment. When you breathe in, 10 to the power 22 numbers of atoms are going inside you, and same number of atoms are coming out, and they are being circulated. If those trees, this earth, and this, everything else is not around, we cannot exist it. We dependently co-rise. That is what is the radical interdependence of reality in the context of our system science. And look at that other kind of aspects. We also teach something called life cycle assessment. The computer that you are using and everything that you are using, if you trace how much greenhouse gas footprint of that one, which is creating all this suffering in a larger scale, you are the responsible for what happens. That's why the Buddha says, Attahi atano natho, attahi atano gati. We also talk about the full global food crisis. A lot of international negotiation takes place, how to secure the food issues, and also there are a number of international convention issues around the land degradation, desertification, and water, and so on. This is a global issue because it affects large portion of global population, and this interrelationship is interdependence have a also connection with other issues like biodiversity, even more serious issue. We are risking his own extinction by extinguishing others. And there are very many international policy responses. But think a little bit from the wisdom perspective. This international issue is not only a technical issue that we monitor and also measure using the GIS, this and that about the global land degradations. When land degrades, water degrades along with it. And when there's a water shortage, when the water conflict, even during the time of Buddha, there is a theory that Buddha didn't left home only because that he saw the old man or diseased man or dying person or dead person. There was also a conflict around the water, and therefore he couldn't able to manage it, and people were shedding their blood because, and then he has to left it. And when he left the place in search for greater understanding of reality, then first time when he was really challenged by his own mind, the clinging, grasping all these maras, then he was touching the earth and taking that vow that without I understand this true nature of reality, this interconnectedness, the dependent origination and the enlightenment, ultimately enlightenment, I will not get out. This earth is the witness, and this is called Bhumi Sparsha Mudra, So he had that trust in earth and also feeling in relationship in earth. And they say that when they got enlightenment, when he wake up from the enlightenment, he was expressing his gratitude to that trees, that earth, and everything before he was attaining something else. Buddha in Buddhism and ecology, the role of tree, this which supported for Buddhist awakening, not only from the natural science perspective, but also emotional perspective. When I gave the example of breathing out and breathing in, that interdependence, this tree is supplying me the oxygen every moment and also taking my carbon dioxide away. So that tree is nothing but my lungs. That is this Buddhist idea of radical interdependence. Until and unless we establish this one at a very core level, I mean, whatever agreement and convention you make about the biodiversity convention or deforestation or land degradation convention, it's not going to really work. So Buddhist environmentalism, because of our deep interdependence and our ethical responsibilities, which extend beyond human, and Buddha was also talking about all sentient beings, and even you look at the state management, the statecraft, and so on, Kautilya was also, recognizing the non-human agency, okay? So this proper relationship is very, very important. And you can now, in the natural science also, we need to bring that one. We teach about why soil is degraded and is degraded sequentially, and finally there is emission of greenhouse gases, low productivity. When there is a low productivity, there is a poverty and desperateness, and that poverty and desperateness will add more stress factor to the already existing tension because of the political failure or governance failure, and that leads to the civil strife. Like that, the same way, this extractive farming that only taking out and supplying food to the multinational companies and so on, so that they can cater their need in the Western world. When you look at that one, the causal link is there. When there is we are getting banana here in Norway, every vegetable, but they are grown somewhere in the south. But we are eating here and we are throwing it here, and this doesn't go back. It goes to our toilet here, and also we can make a compost and make money out of it. But if you see the causal linkage of what happens in the farming system, it leads finally to hunger, malnutrition, political unrest, and there are a number of studies about soil and peace, how there has been a civilization collapse because of the degradation of soil around the world. We talk about global food insecurity. What is the causes? Poverty and inequality, yes, also violent conflict today. Because of this conflict, inter and intra-state conflict, they are also affecting both production and supply and excess of food. There are economic downturns also, and also pandemic. But if you ask Buddha again, you have to do everything very mindfully, even the food wastage, which you can see around the world. Food wastage, we need to really minimize. And simple at a very personal level, mindful eating is very, very important. The Buddha says that whether it was a rich or coarse food, delicious or awful tasting, it has to be accepted with gratitude and eaten regarding it as a medicine mindfully without wasting it. We can go on and go on about water issue. We are using water but mindlessly. If you look at how much we extract and how much we consume, there's a big difference in the agriculture sector, domestic sector, and industry sector around the world, because we are not doing mindfully. And therefore, in the larger context, when the tension builds up and so on, there are also a number of studies and regional conflicts over scarce water resources, sometimes resulting in warfare, which is also this book that, if you look at it, issue of international relation. Now, during the time of Buddha, there was a plenty of water. There is a Buddhist story there that I just wanted to share. Some monks were taking water. This story I think I heard in Bhutan, but there was still some water, and Buddha asked, "Did you finish drinking water?" And they said, "Yes." And but you see, there is a small portion there. Eat that away. Don't throw that one. Just eat and just drink that water. Meaning that you see how much care and how much mindful you have to do every activity. Otherwise, it will what happens. You can see it here around the world. The picture itself talks about it. So therefore, if you want to be compassionate, you have to start from yourself. Climate change is a big issue. People think I also am a scientist and I am doing a very complicated dynamic nonlinear modeling to see the greenhouse gases and their implication at different level, from organism level to landscape level. But if you see from the Buddhist perspective, this is an issue of mind. Mind is a victim of climate change because all this eco-anxiety, what happens with the drought, flood that I gave you the example, and what happens into the individual psyche, you can see. So mind is a victim, this eco-anxiety thing. And mind also a root cause because of our consumerism, because of our all this, the way we are using huge and good and services, that has created the climate change really. And mind is also a barrier to climate actions. Can you imagine Trump, despite the fact that IPCC is giving different kind of proof beyond the shadow of doubt, he was saying that, oh, this world does not have a climate change, this is just a construct. So it's also a barrier, and many multinational companies also say that, no, these people, these scientists, this is their construct, really, that they give another different kind of explanation. And when there's a vicious cycle, because when there is these things happening now, different kind of drought, flood, forest fire, and when their people are displaced from their places, they first of all create conflict, and mindlessly they are also putting more pressure on the existing natural resources, and that is a problem around the world. So mind is everything, ladies and gentlemen. What you think that you became. So finally, the Buddhist doctrine relevant to Aya and sustainable development is we have to realize this radical interdependence of reality, this pratitya samupada, okay, that causality principle. And also, it's not enough. We need to have a skillful means of ultimately altruistic and perfectible human nature. We come with a basic innate goodness, already inherent compassion. It has been overshadowed by very many different factors and so on. So with regard to relationship between economic activity around the world and the environment, Buddha could be one of the first thinker, in my opinion, to advocate for environmentally sustainable economics as an essential social principle. Buddha is not a mythical figure, he's a historical figure. And you can see all this idea in Green Buddhism and all these kind of things. So this altruistic and perfectible through mind training. I have learned these things during my sabbatical, how this mind training really helps during my 1 year sabbatical in Naropa University in Boulder, Colorado. And there is also, we need to think this world from the perspective of impermanence. American first, American the big, that is becoming now already obsolete. Look at the book written by Amitabh Acharya, The End of American World Order. And my friend, this is Bhante, Professor Dhammajyoti, and I learned a lot of this Buddhism and Aya kind of things from him. I pay respect to him. This impermanence, you know, all this, you can imagine these big celebrities, you know, when they were there, everybody were following them, but when they die, it happens. This mortality awareness, impermanence of everything. Why Mr. Putin is not understanding that he also one day will die and he will also suffer, and therefore just moralizing and justifying his own kind of understanding of reality and killing innocent people. So this mortality awareness is also important. So more you are motivated by love and by more fearless, free your action will be. And therefore, today, very many different scientists, they are bringing the idea that when you practice, for example, some of the mind training, Buddhist mindfulness, number of studies have shown that decrease our implicit bias, and that has also very important for our this problem with the racism and so on, implicit bias. These are some of the idea that I will not explain it, but Buddhist is also this idea, not Buddhist, but it is becoming really a universal idea for the transformative politics today. And therefore, Buddhist conception of politics is serving the common good extend to international realm, where our humanity and fundamental interdependence ultimately transcend national, racial, and other barriers, which are at most only conventional thing. So today, very many Western scientists are bringing and putting it also in international perspective. And also Buddha has, because in international relation, knowledge is a soft power. So there has been a spread of soft power in the ancient time, but now it's finding also, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, who is respected everywhere. Many political leaders love to listen to him because his simplicity, humility, and also humoristic kind of life, and this is very, very important. This Buddhism, there is a very many Buddhist university with many courses on Buddhism and politics that we can harvest some more thing from their different kind of theories. For example, Buddhist social theory necessarily begins with doctrine of radical independence that I have already said, which underscores the individual responsibility for other, okay? And Buddhist statecraft, ruling in according with the Dharma. Buddhist statecraft is an international extension of Buddhist political and economical principle for equality, harmony, social welfare, non-violence, coalition, and also mutually beneficial commercial action. This has been written in different kind of sutta in the Digha Nikaya that we can find the reference to that one. So the politics should be meant for liberation from suffering, because suffering is a fact of existence, really. Suffering, it will be there, but it's optional. If you really do it according to, in line with this transformative thinking from different thinkers from the East, that may be relevant for the contemporary world today, this dependent origination of suffering and also universal equality. So during the Buddha time also, there was a caste system in India, and many layers of societal, and then he was creating a Sangha where every caste were welcome, and when they all entered into the Sangha, nobody belongs to any caste, everybody is equally treated. Also during that difficult time, 2,600 years ago, he was also bringing nuns to enter into the Sangha, okay? So, and then he also gives a lot of good idea about what the political leader should be. I'll not go this. Thus, Raj Dharma is mentioned in Buddhist politics. There is also economy, theory, and so on. So, Buddhist ayar begin with the establishments of righteous states, really. He doesn't believe in this so-called realist theory, really. When you become righteous and very really respect each other, then that will be a foundation for any kind of stuff. So Buddhist ayar, I will just give one example of Bhutan only because I'm talking too much, to illustrate the Buddhist approach to the really political arena and also policy arena at state level. And also I have been to Bhutan and working there, coordinating project for almost 9 years. So in 2008 Constitution of Bhutan provides Buddhism is the spiritual heritage of Bhutan, which promotes the principle and values of peace, non-violence, compassion, and tolerance. The state shall strive to create conditions that will enable true and sustainable development of a good and compassionate society rooted in Buddhist ethics and universal values. This is there in the Constitution of Bhutan. And you see, it's also Bhutan, for me, is a soft power, that idea of the GNS, but it is also contested by very many other scholars. I was very honored to meet the King of Bhutan, look at his simplicity and humility. Any world leader, I think, who comes in contact with him will transform because of his presence itself. Even in the university, everything is a kind of, they try to organize in a really value-based way, because individual transformation is very important for societal transformation, and societal transformation has implication for international relation. And these were my happy students from Bhutan. We are also bringing this kind of transformative thinking, the contribution of different thinkers in our program in conflict, peace, and development studies in Nepal, which Professor Stig Jarle Hansen, which is here, will also mention about it. So I have talked, I'm sorry, but now I will invite Professor Bishnu Pathak to give his presentation. Your time is maximum 10 minutes, sir.
Thank you, Professor Sitaula. Namaskar and all protocol observers. As this time I'm going to share some of the thoughts of Chinese wisdom. I begin with this, that what former Indian President Abdul Kalam said: dreams transform into thoughts and thoughts result in action. Today I'm talking about these Confucius, Laozi, and Sun Tzu. There is a clear birth and death of this Confucius, but it is very hard to say, having this Lao Tzu and Sun Tzu. So Confucius, yes, he is a well-known thinker. It's a representative of Eastern culture in China. He wrote a book called Analect, The Analects, and his disciple, particularly his disciple, collected his saying, discussion, statement, thoughts, ideas, commentaries, quotes on ethic, moral character, and good behavior after his death. He studied the harmony of Tao, Lao Tzu, and Confucius teaching. We can say that there are two types of teaching. One is that the general teaching, and other one is that core teaching. It is golden rule of Confucius, what is said, that do not do unto others what you would not want others to do unto you. Similarly, unity in diversity and in rites and rituals. On the course of that, these specific teachings or core teachings in Chinese: Li, politeness; Jin, humanity; Yi, righteousness; Xiao, filial piety, harmony; Qi, wisdom; Sun Du, gentleness; and Ti, day, power. So basically, these are the core teachings, and I'm not going to tell all of them because of the time constraints.
I think you are not sharing your screen, because I think please make your PowerPoint in a presentation mode. There has been some.
Sorry, where it is?
Below. If you click below in the presentation, yeah, that one.
Just a second. It shows that. May I start again? This is.
Yeah, you can share your screen again. Fine.
Did you get this? Not again?
Yeah, I can see a very small screen, but
Okay.
you like to continue.
Just a second then. Okay. Did you see?
Yeah, I think so.
Sir,
Yes, thank you.
presentation more. Sir, presentation more. Need
Presentation mode.
down below is cop.
There is a small cup-like thing.
All
in
cop is down.
bottom.
But I have already, I didn't see right now. This is why.
Probably you are sharing the Zoom, not your PowerPoint, right?
I have problem to share this. I don't know how to get this. Stop live.
I think we can understand this. Please continue now, because there is a closing ceremony. So
Sorry, yes. So I do not tell more thing about this core teachings of analyte. I have already developed this, but in the terms of this politeness, yes, politeness is also belong to in two sections: interpersonal human relationships, and second one is rectifications. Within this human relationship, it is also divided into five. It is between ruler and ruled, between father and son, between husband and wife, between elder brother and younger brother, and between elder friend to younger friend. What? So yes, third one is the second one is that this is harmony, filial piety. Filial piety, it is definitely maintain the harmony, and the harmony basically lead to this no punishment practice exist in filial piety. So this is the fifth one is that wisdom, virtue of knowledge of right and wrong. This is again, and this Tzu is also the meaning of gentleness. It is gentleness is further disseminating the informations of kindness, wisdom, sincerity, righteousness, and the dignity. So this is Te or Day. It is also the power. Te or Day is a key Chinese philosophical concept of moral character, virtue, excellence, morality in Confucianisms. It is also talk about this achievement of this peace and harmonious society and personal life too. So Confucius, yes, this on the course of that international relations, the Confucius institutions have already stabilized over 150 countries. It started on 2004. So among them, this is the even only 85 Confucius institutions has stabilized in USA alone. Secondly, this is UK, and thirdly, it is Korea, Russia, and Thailand and Japan 6. So this is about this international relation of this Confucius, and the main aim is to promote Chinese language and its culture, promoting local Chinese language teaching internationally, and facilitate cultural access programs. Yes. So second one is that Lao Tzu. So there are several spell of name. It's a word, guys. Lao Ji, Lao Tse, Lao Tu, Lao Ji, and so forth. Many Chinese clans of the Li family stated that they are the descendant of this Lao Ji, and he was a Chinese father of Taoism and had been a philosopher of Taoism. So Dao or Lao is the way, path, road, course, space, principle, doctrine, belief, and method. He wrote a poem called the Te Ching, or the Dao De Jing. So Tao means the way, path, and its power is also the virtue. Yes, based on this Tao Te Ching, it is also divided into this general and specific teachings. Lao Tzu, tired of life in the hand court, as he saw increasingly and morally corrupt court, as he had been doing a record keeping work there at the court, while he tried to escape from the court, and he rode on this water buffalo, and he when he was trying to cross the border line, the custom officials recognized him, and they asked him to furnish his wisdom first and then finally go. He finally wrote this is 85 verses of poem in a book, Tao Te Ching, and it is written in these bamboo slips. So based on this, that sorry,
maybe it's not moving your slide, so can you just
yeah, now finally I'm in specific teaching. This is meditations, simplicity, love, empty, natural law, humility, unity, peace, harmony, wisdom, righteousness, nature, and freedom. So basically, he focuses core teaching in his 81 verses of poem. So you can have a look. This I have already.
No, we cannot see your screen, sir. But what you do is that just say some words, because you can see the screen. What was his teaching have a relevance for international relation today?
Yes, definitely. Thank you very much. Yes.
We cannot see, so we'll come back to you later on. But can you just explain that so that people will be asking questions and then we'll respond to that?
Yes, meditations. It is also the it belongs to international relations, simplicity, law, and natural law, humility, unity, peace, harmony, wisdom, righteousness, and nature, and finally freedom. So yes, he advocated a deep connective empathy between people as the means of the peace and harmony. So Tao Te Ching has become a second most translated book in various languages in the history after religious God in various traditional Chinese school of thoughts or philosophy. Book of the Tao guidelines to cultivate a life of peace, serenity, and compassion. Similarly, Tao Te Ching not only show the way to an unobstructed existence, but it also reveal why and how this existence is being possible even in today modern world, owing to the constant change taken place in the world. So finally, I'm telling about the Sun Tzu. Sun Tzu is a legend of the military philosopher, general military strategies, warfare strategy, theorist, and author too. So Tzu was born in a military family due to his literacy prowess. So he wrote a book called War has been a source of engaging in guerrilla warfare too. The book has already influenced both Western and non-Western philosophy that has been a systematic guide of military strategy and tactics for both governments and commanders. The book also divides into this 13th chapter, which belongs to formulation of plans, waging war, attack by stratagem, military tactical disposition, energy, weak and strong point, maneuvering, various in tactics, the army on the march, terrain, 9 situation, the attack by fires, and finally the use of spies. So these are his core findings. So even on the course of that formulation of plan, he also give his own thought, dividing into this moral law, heaven, weather, timing, surrounding terrain of the earth, environment, the role of the commander, discipline, organization, and method of war. So this is wagging of war also mentioned here sincerely. This attack by stratagems, the fight and conquer of the battle is not supreme excellence, but supreme excellence consists in breaking the enemy's resistance without fighting. This is his sole findings of these sections. So military tactical dispositions. Fifth one is energy. Energy is also one kind of strategic military power. This is weak and strong point. It is similar to weak and strong point. He identified it is similar to illusion and reality. If the enemy is taking the fight at ease, it can be harassed. If sufficiently supplied with food, it can be starved, and if gently encamped, it will force him to move. So these are his sole findings.
Thank you, Professor Pathak. Since we cannot see the PowerPoint, now you can stop the screen sharing because it's just one thing is displaying there. Now okay. we move on to next panelist now.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Can you please stop your screen sharing because only one small this is appearing is not moving anywhere. Just stop your screen sharing. Sir, thank you. Oh, very good. So, thank you, sir, I think for this introduction. So next is that I would like to invite in the order of beauty and in the order of experience, former His Excellency Dr. Samburam Singhada to talk about what is the thinkers like Mahatma Gandhi have to say, and what was his idea, his Gandhian theory or philosophy or insights, which is relevant for international relation today. Dr. Simkhada sir, are you hearing me?
Thank you, Professor Sitaula, and very distinguished panel, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I'm absolutely delighted that Professor Sitaula has very kindly invited me to join this panel on a topic of such vital importance for starting from the individuals to the whole of the world. Right at the beginning, in his introductory remarks, and of course the Buddhist philosophy, he's covered very extensively many of the things that, in fact, Gandhi also believed in. So as a result, it has made my life much easier. Secondly, I wanted to say a little bit about the very topic of the whole conference, in the sense that transformative research in education. And in fact, it's precisely the issue which needs to happen, but is not happening in the world. And so that makes this conference very, very important. Now, when you talk about Mahatma Gandhi, the two things, his only autobiography, which he admits he wrote very reluctantly, and he makes it very clear. I have nothing new to teach the world. Truth and nonviolence are as old as the hills. And that sort of reflects what, in my view, so relevant to the topic that you talked about, global IR. That's so relevant for contemporary international relations, in the sense that that also is reflected by Kautilya in his reflections on which is known as one of the oldest treatises on statecraft. And Kautilya has a beautiful line, among his many. It says, Ahara nindra bhayamaithunani samani chaitani nidam pasunam jnanam narana madhiko viseso jnane nahina pasuvi samana. Now, what that reflects, and the similarity of why Gandhi is saying, look, I have nothing more to teach than non-violence and truth, which are as old as hills themselves. In the sense that Gandhi's peculiarity and his relationship with the contemporary international relation, and of course the idea you were also mentioning about a righteous state. His whole idea was that a righteous state starts from a righteous individual. And as a result today, he said, look, I have nothing else to do. But as reflected in Chanakya's notion, that in fact, what separates the human species than the rest of the other species is in fact the notion called jnana. And that is what brings me to this transformative process of learning. Essentially, what we are basically doing is acquiring information. Now you translate that information based on your own life experience. So you further define what you learn in the book, read in the book, hear in the lecture class, in a seminar like this. What you do internalize within yourself, first based on your life experience. But according to Chanakya, and in fact what Gandhi is saying, I can teach anything, is in fact there is one more step of transformation. And the point he's making is, look, human beings have this inner wisdom, the righteousness, the notion of right and wrong. And today that is where the problem of international politics and international relations, that in fact it has become so institutionalized in certain conventions that in fact people have stopped thinking what is right and what is wrong. And that's one very important aspect of Gandhi. The secondly, he has said that his whole book is my story of my experiments with truth. And as a result, it's a reflection not on thoughts, but in fact his own life. So he believes in translating whatever you learn or whatever you teach into behavioral methodology. One of his most illustrious contemporaries said about Chanakya, "We are fortunate and should be grateful that fate has bestowed upon us so luminous a contemporary, a beacon to the generations to come," Albert Einstein. And another individual of great repute, the civil rights legendary, Martin Luther King. We may ignore Gandhi at our own risk. What we are seeing today, all the things that were described earlier as to what is happening in the world, is, in my view, precisely because scholarship and leadership have chosen to ignore what Gandhi stood for. Now, you talked a little bit initially about international relations. As a student, teacher, and practitioner of international relations, in my view, international relation is the study of great power relations and how they affect everyone else. In your picture, there was this Ukraine building. In front of our television every day, what we see in Ukraine is a classic case of the state of that relationship of great powers and how everyone else is affected. And I don't have to go into much detail as to...
Kindly, please, if you just enlighten us a little bit, just what Satyagraha is relevant for international relations.
I'm coming, Professor, I'm coming.
Because you have 5 minutes more to go.
My goodness. Okay, so in that sense, Gandhi's whole teaching are, in my presentation, are based on 5 very simple things. First is ahimsa. And what ahimsa relates to today's international relation is rethinking power, redressing injustices through non-violence. Because at the moment, our whole idea is to redress injustice through violence. And as a result, violence multiplies. Second is Swaraj and Satyagraha. Swaraj and Satyagraha are very relevant to the evolving notions of sovereignty. And you know, sovereignty itself has undergone a process of initially the papal, the imperial, to the geographic, presently geographic and state, national, to the current evolving notion of individual sovereignty. And you are practicing partly in Europe. What is European Court of Human Rights? Is in fact a devolution of sovereignty to the individual, that in fact even the individual is sovereign to the extent that the state cannot infringe his or her basic rights. The third dynamics of Gandhi's teachings of relevance today is you're referring about the East and West. In fact, he is the meeting point of the East and West in politics and in religion by articulating the idea of a human family today. And that is, I think, most important. Then the question of sustainability. You know, the world, your presentation was so illuminating on the problems of crisis of sustainability. And yet Gandhi's Sarvodaya movement and his way of living, what he calls voluntary control of needs and use of local resources in terms that the present crisis of division It's not that everybody is not progressing. Everybody, so one section of the world is progressing, but the other is so destitute. So his Sarvodaya model is answer to the global crisis of unsustainability. And finally, my 5 points on Gandhi is, I was chairing the UN's Human Rights Commission. And so I have a book called Human Rights, Human Wrongs in the Scale of Human Conscience. And in the whole Universal Declaration of Human Rights, out of the 30 articles, there is only a passing reference to human duties. And today the problem is precisely in international relations. Everybody is looking for the rights, but what about their duties? That in fact, when they exercise their rights, that they don't infringe on the rights of others. So that comes with his notion of Gandhi on human duties as the basis of all universal human rights. So in this very short reflection.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sambhu.
I will conclude, Professor Sitaula, with just one thing.
Just 1 minute, sir.
Yeah. Gandhi is too important to be ignored, and yet too vast to be covered in a small session like this. But the world faces the current crisis primarily because both scholarship and leadership have paid so little attention to his whole idea of bringing what we have in the Oriental wisdom, Buddhism, Hinduism, of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. And that's where the current problem is. The whole Western political thought, and as a result, strategic thinking, is based on the idea of civis pacem para bellum, that we prepare for war to keep peace. What Gandhi says is prepare for peace to keep peace. And that's what the difference is. Thank you very much.
Beautiful. Thank you, sir. Thank you, His Excellency. Now, because we are also talking both Gandhi and Kautilya, so let's move to India. I'd like to invite Colonel Pradeep Gautam, sir, to give his brief insights around Kautilya or Indian way of thinking around and about international relation and ancient and also classical thinking and unsustainable development and IR both. Thank you. P.K. Gautam, sir.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm speaking from Noida, from India. I thank Professor Bishal Sitaula for this fantastic conference, because last quarter of a century, I have started with non-traditional security, climate change, etc., water, the mythology, and later on, last 10 years, I have come into indigenous historical knowledge. So this is the first time university, like he approached me, wherein sustainable development and IR can be merged. So what I'll do is I'll just read out from a web comment I wrote 5 years ago. It's called Coping with Environmental Challenges, the Importance of Evolving a Balance Between Earth, Calm and Dharma. Now, it took billions of years for fossil fuel to form, but humans are likely to consume it all within 400 years. The pace of consumption today is leading to excess of carbon in the atmosphere, which is exacerbating the process of climate change. It is common knowledge that the entire humanity was to consume according to standards of the developed industrial economies. The resources would not be sufficient, and the mankind may need resources more than one Earth. Now, this was shown by UNEP. There's a famous diagram of UNEP that we need more than one ecological footprint if every human being starts consuming the way the West is, or West even rich within poor countries. Let's not put the blame on West and hide behind the poverty. Okay, that's one of the tricks bureaucrats play, and even scholars. Anyway, in Indian philosophy, now I come to Trivarga. Now this is a-religious. It has got nothing to do with religion, but it is based on 3 basic needs of a person, society, or a nation, or even planet Earth. That is dharma, that is moral or ethical, artha, that is material well-being, and kama, that is desire and expectations. So Earth is basically growth and development, and calm is desire and expectations. And all has to be moderated with dharma. Now, dharma is not religion. It actually has got about 20 to 30 meanings. If you read Radha Krishna's work, dharma is also second law of thermodynamics. The dharma of the wind is to be restless. Okay. Dharma of the wind is to be restless. Okay. So dharma is such a fascinating concept. So it has to control both earth and kama. Now, the Rudolphs, the American scholars who are no more, who had settled in India, wrote a piece on Mahatma Gandhi on his book in Hind Swaraj. And they said that in Hind Swaraj, it's about a positive version of civilization and the mastery over mind and our passion. Gandhi wanted mastery of, as the previous speaker, ambassador had said, that, you have to control your passion. And Gandhi's reading of the Bhagavad Gita was based basically on that. And the main fault in modern civilization is that it pursues worldly mastery than self-mastery. Even Dalai Lama in his regular lectures from Dharamsala is saying that technology is advanced so fast. There was no mobile 20 years ago. Now there's mobile and AI. But the human nature, unfortunately, the most arrogant species that we are, has not.
Colonel Sahib, let's make it a little bit dialogical. Let me ask you one question right here.
Okay.
And probably if you respond, and we'll come back to you. The origin of Gandhian philosophy, India, and so on. But many scholars also think that these theory, thoughts, insight, conception given by Gandhi is grossly ignored in Indian politics. They are not visible. That's one line of thinking. Could you just comment on that one?
Yes, because the world, we need statesmen in the world. And as per Professor T.V. Paul from America, he says the world leadership is mediocre. So as the ambassador said, that leaders, even society, I find my friends from Gujarat, there's a book by two scholars that nobody thinks of Gandhi in Gujarat or in Bihar. So that's the sad part. Anyway.
Sir, can I make it dialogical a little bit because because there is a closing up ceremony, so I think I am not keeping time here. Just let me ask you another. Yeah, please relate to IR and.
I'm coming to that.
Yeah.
So Anthony Parel, in an edited book on Hind Swaraj, has used these three concepts of Gandhi in asserting autonomy of dharma. Now, in international climate negotiation, there what IR comes in. The moral argument was submitted by the Indian state during the Paris. Two aspects were given. First is Gandhi's ideas of trusteeship. And second was, which was quoted in the keynote, that earth has enough for its need, but not for its greed. Now, Gandhi did not invent these ideas. That is the beauty of Gandhi. He recycled old ideas, according to Anthony Parel's research from Canada, which is fantastic. And then he gave the moral high ground of the old ideas in a new form. That is the beauty of Gandhi. And he said that and then what Kautilya says in book 9, material gain, spiritual good and pleasure. This is a triad of gain. So Kautilya also does not ignore. So he also says that. Now, in the end, I will say there's a concern in the international community on, there's a growing expectation in a middle class. So there's an Anthropocene already has set, and Professor Sitaula would know. But my research has shown that what has been said, what has to be said has been said. Unfortunately, we are now, everything is getting exasperated. So that is the problem, how in education, we have to get the ethical values of Gandhi back into the concept of Tivarga. Now, as the other speakers are saying, there's a term called phenomenology of religion. I don't have to be a Hindu or a Muslim or a Christian to understand the philosophy of these religious texts. So that is, phenomenology is extremely important. And in the end, in IR, I have said with raised hand that what has been said has said. I'm not the only one. Vyas, when he wrote the Mahabharata, in the end, Vyas says, I'm raising my hand that dharma controls everything, but nobody listens to me. And Apastamma, the Dharma Shastra author, said gods and goddesses will not tell you what is right and wrong. You have to decide in contemporary times what is right and what is wrong. So today we have to decide. So is the social media young generation deciding that brutal behavior is right? We have to just check out. And we are actually an extinct species. What I find is academics, we are great. It's an echo chamber which we are sitting. You please go out and talk to the people. What are the expectations? So there's a huge mismatch between the extinct species of great scholars who are lovable people, very positivists, very positive thinkers, and the reality which is happening outside. That is what I found. And finally, Saraswati is universal. So I don't think we should say Western, Eastern. What about Japan? Is it Western? So Saraswati is universal. So the knowledge is universal. And finally, let me end on Gandhi. He said, for my spiritual need, the world is my village. And for my physical needs, the village is my world. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Of course, this ancient thinker from India, of course, people are fond of some and not fond of any. Kautilya also, when Kautilya was giving his ideas, that time, 2,300 years ago, he was combining the opposing and complementary idea like Sankhya, Yoga, and Lokayat, and so on. But this is still relevant for today. So now let's move to Professor Stig Jarle Hansen to give his idea and insights on Islamic wisdom, which is relevant for IR and SD. Stig, are you there?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. Please go ahead. You have 10 minutes only.
Okay, I'll start. Can you see my slide?
Yes, I can see.
Yes, thank you, Bishal, for inviting me to give a presentation. This will be a small presentation. Of course, the Islamic tradition is it's a rich tradition. It's not easy all the time to separate from a Western tradition or indeed from more East Asian tradition, because you had interactions. Some of the scholarship from the West was kept in the Islamic traditions in the so-called Western Dark Ages. Some of the Greek philosophy. Islamic tradition has interacted with Greek philosophy quite extensively, and we'll see in developments like causality theory coming out of classical Islamic philosophy. We did see, however, that the impact of Islamic philosophy dwindled the last 200-300 years, and that today maybe it's not launching itself that much on the world stage. It's nevertheless very important to inquire into knowledge from these Islamic scholars to create a truly global dialogue that we're talking about here. I'm going to look into one of these scholars only, which is Ibn Khaldun. And the reason for this is it's better to focus, and there's a short amount of time that I have at my disposal. This is basically a descriptive theory. I heard some of the gentlemen speaking before me being more normative. This is how basically civilizations works. Ibn Khaldun was interested in basically the rise and fall of empires and the division between nomads and sedentary people, and launched the concept of asabiya. Basically what can be translated into group solidarity, social cohesion, as a kind of explaining factor for both the rise of civilization and the fall of empires, basically. And he's saying that asabiya is crucial when a new empire is on the rise, and also for a state, but it has a tendency to fail over time. He would say that individual man can lack virtue, and maybe society under some circumstances can offset this. So social interaction can offset this. And indeed, Khaldun is seen as a kind of pioneer within something that is very similar to the sociology. He talks about this strange interaction between Bedouin and Bedouin culture, and the rise of basically civilization and new states, and also of the drawbacks of sedentary cultures. He is saying that for the Bedouins in classical Arab times, you had a push to cooperation at a lower level because of the harshness of reality, and also because of competition amongst the Bedouin. So there was an inclination to cooperate, to just manage basically the day-to-day life. As he says, primitive lives leads to coercion, since non-coercion has its costs. And basically, then kingship can emerge over Bedouin tribes, because you have a comparative advantage when it comes to coercion. The people, the tribes that will have asabiya, they will basically be superior to other nomadic tribes that lacks this asabiya, this feeling of oneness and social community. So there's a comparative advantage here. He would compare that with city life at the time, which he says he has a regulated and legal framework, but the problem with that, it's enforced rather than believed in, and it makes life easier so that you don't need the social coercion, and that will draw back some comparative advantages compared to newcomers that has this asabiya. So this asabiya can create a bond that can exist inside a new civilization. When these tribes then emerge and take over states, it will be stronger in its nomadic phase, but it will be there at an early stage when you're establishing itself. So when you have this asabiya, this feeling of oneness, then you will have a rising level of civilization, and which paradoxically is coming from a kind of wild condition at the start. And you will have a decline when it's declining. And that means that for him, civilizations will be cyclical. Empires will be cyclical. They will grow, mature, and then as they mature, life will get easier, and the level of difference between the ruler and the ruled will increase to the extent that you will have little loyalty. So basically you will have little asabiya towards the state. So the state becomes weaker because of the differences between the ruler and the ruled, and also because of the regularization of day-to-day life. And then you will have decline. He warns against the remoteness of a ruling elite at the top, because that's a step to decrease the asabiya in such a cyclical pattern. And he sees this taking place in a lot of different states. So one of the examples that he is not using, but we can mention here, might not be clear that clear to my East Asian colleagues, but it's the change of the monarchy in France, where for the first 800 years of the Frankish tradition, the king of France wasn't the king of France, he was the king of the Franks, the tribal entity. But then after 800 years, you turned the king into a king of France, which was the king of a land. So you see then the rupture of this bond between the ruler and the ruled, and the ruler becoming more aloof from the people that is supposed to be ruled. The interesting thing for me with this theory is that it illustrates some of the points that was catch on to much later by some Western philosophers, and in a different way. It highlights aspects. You have Benedict Anderson talking about imagined communities, how nationalists create bonds that are transcending personal interest, and sometimes that even are transcending rationality. Basically, Ernst Gellner, who talked about the revolution of the printing press creating some kind of nationalist coercion. The thing about Khaldun is he's predating them and explaining other mechanisms that I find very interesting. And I think the example of Khaldun kind of highlights that you need to have a global
turn off your
discussion.
screen. Yeah.
And I think that's my presentation, Bishal.
Thank you so much. Please turn off your screen. Yes, this very interesting and very new to us. This kind of integration and this kind of idea also exists in, for example, Tianjia in Chinese philosophy, all under the heaven. Also in Indian kind of, even in a bigger scale, this Advaita, the use of that idea. Also in African, Ubuntu, that I heard learn in this conference, that I exist because we exist, that kind of idea and so on. So I have been also, to summarize it, I would like to summarize, I will just ask respected Professor Bidanath Koirala to give his final remark.
Namaskar. Thank you, Professor Bishal, for giving me this wonderful opportunity. I didn't have that much to say because I just listen to people and I'll try to understand whether I can do justice to your topic or not. I'll begin with a kind of simple question. The question is, we are heading to conquer the nature, but our ancestors, basically the Confucius or Veda, Upanishad, Buddha, whoever that person were, they taught us to be in harmony with the nature. So are we heading to the right direction? We are climbing the Mount Everest or many Himalayas. What is the use of conquering the nature? Is the kind of question that we are supposed to have. The second question that I would say, we have constructed big buildings, the skyscrapers, but now people in France, they are going to the den house. The den house is going to be expensive these days because it used to be 20,000 or less than $20,000 euro, but now it has gone to 100,000 plus. So why? Because in the den house, they feel more safe. The energy is less consumed. People are happy. So are we heading to this kind of right direction or the wrong direction? Skyscraper in one place and the den house in another place. We have constructed big buildings with this rods and cements and all this kind of things. These are the burdens to the nature. But the ancestors, they constructed the buildings with the kind of bricks and mortars and all this kind of things. They were compatible to the nature. So are we heading to the right direction? So this is kind of simple question that I had in my mind. The second thing that I talk about the sustainable development. We talk a lot about the so-called sustainable development. I use this term so-called. Why? Our ancestors taught us to be sustainable. For example, they have the bow tree somewhere, and down there, that's kind of water tank or the pond. Down there, the animals were there, and they have this kind of opportunity to recharge the line. At the same time, do justice to the nature. At the same time, people used to come there, sit there and talk, and then get some sort of understanding. They were the wonderful group of the people, but now we develop another design, and all these things are gone. So are we going to the sustainable direction? That's a question for me, at least for me, I guess. So we have the kind of intercropping system. The Vedic text told us for intercropping. And in Africa also, people talk about the intercropping. In Asia, we talk about intercropping. But now the people are talking kind of one crop. So are we heading to the sustainable development? This is another kind of question that I have. The third question that I will be putting in the kind of raising the cows. Our ancestors taught us to raise the organic farms. The local cows, and local cows were used for many purposes. For example, we have called Panchagabya medicine. By Panchagabya medicine means they use this cow dung, there is the milk, there is the ghee, and there is the all these are 4 or 5 things to make medicine. But the cows that we are raising in the West, the hybrid cows, their cow dungs are not used that purpose, cannot be used for that purpose. Their urines cannot be used for that purpose. Their ghee cannot be used for that purpose. And so are we doing justice to the Panchagabya medicine, because our body is made of 5 things, and the 5 things are there with the cows, and then the cows ability could help us to be sustained, to do balance to our body, because we have three things, what they call three dosa. Three dosa, they call three dosa, means we have a cough, we have a bath, the gout, and the kind of pitta. So if that is so, are we heading to the sustainable development or going back to the kind of another direction? Again, with this food, I have another type of question in mind. The question is, our ancestors taught us to have 6 things to in our food daily. They call sadras, because the body is made of 6 things. 6 ras means the juice. So sour, toro, what they call toro, bitter, chili, and salty, sweet, and all these types of things were needed for the body. So they have a kind of balance system through cultural approach. For example, eating rice, and in the end, when we finish eating, then we are given nut to eat, so that we'll get this kind of bitter taste as well. So
Sure, sir. I mean, these are very, very important for sustainability, because what happens in microcosm also has influence in the macrocosm. And therefore, what matters is that individual transformation is also very important for societal and the global transformation. And also, I mean, this we should see phenomena not only from the Kantian dualistic perspective, but also from the other perspective, not only focusing only on the phenomena level, but also nomina or this hidden connection. And for that, everything matters really. I mean, after all, deforestation happens different patches in the world, here and there, Nepal, Himalaya, but its implication is global. So, yatha pinde tatha brahmande. So it's very, very important. So finally, we have another 2-3 minutes, 2 minutes or so. Anybody from the audience want to, they can unmute and just say. So thank you, Professor Bidhyanath Koirala, for your insights. And thank you, everybody. We have 2-3 minutes.
Professor Sitaula, thank you. Professor, thank you so much. I think you just touched the crux of both social sciences and physical sciences. You know, in the sense that what the Rig Veda you just said, yatha pinde tatha brahmande. Today we have become disassociated with either the creations of nature, and that is what made Gandhi very special, you know, in the sense that he provides a synthesis of all our traditional wisdom, and yet not in conflict with some of the Western philosophies, because he's experienced both. And that is why I have a piece called East and West, is there a meeting point? And Gandhi is in fact the meeting point. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Of course, very, very interesting insight here, because we need to look for synergies, complementarities between big and small also, as we have already said. Also, how to deal with this complexity of global big picture, and that cannot be comprehended by just few Western thinker really. We need this wisdom tradition from different part of the world in order to make it a kind of general phenomena. And for that, there are different modes of knowing, contemplative modes of knowing, how Buddha understood the nature of reality, how other the ancient seers like, and how even if you trust on the nature and beyond that mandate of heaven, if you violate the mandate of heaven, then the resulting thing will come. There will be collapse of empire in China and so on. So, but it seems like before we get the right mandate of heaven, heaven itself will churn us and make us resilient. So all this disorienting dilemma that are happening around the world today is us to make a little bit awake and see that all these are very important. there could be some, certain amount of darkness is needed to see the stars really. So this disorienting dilemma that I can see in the international arena today, in the collapse of really the ecology, and also possibly the collapse of civilization that I'm worried of, will use different perspective. And for that, for me, there is also nothing like East and West, because I live in the Western country for last 35 years. And I have learned that, yes, we all have something called basic innate goodness that need to be really brought together. Thank you so much for everybody for this very interesting panel discussion. And thank you so much. Thank you so much.